Why are people in computer science so nice? Maybe a little bit off topic, but I really have to get that out. In my experiences, people in CS are so nice and calm and understanding. I studied a few semesters and am now working somewhere where I have to do the onboardings for all the CS working students, and they are so nice and seem to be exactly my kind of people. Smart, nice, understanding, introvert, and a little bit lost. Anyone have similar experiences? Love you all. Bonding over shared suffering. Striving in the pain, sharing the pain. When you know that the greatest suffering can come from a tiny invisible thing, like an extra space or missed comma in hundreds of lines of code, you learn not to judge too quickly or too harshly. But it worked on my machine. Traumatic bonding. 100% this. The only time you'll see rude, snarky behavior is in the presence of someone to impress. You'll find those who have less skills downplaying others to increase visibility. Other than that, the knowledge through perseverance is the key element to success and the common commitment shared by CS practitioners. I can't agree more. Absolutely. For me, just starting out teaching myself programming, I understand the struggles, so I always try my best to help if I can. This job is hard, and we don't have to make it harder by being rude to our fellows. But be aware, there are always a holes somewhere out there. BTW, what do you mean by a little bit lost, lol? People in CS are regular people. Some are nice, some not so. While we are usually polite to our peers, and I would generally agree with your description, there are traps that I have seen CS people fall into many times that are not nice. Having a disregard for business people because they are perceived to be less technically savvy. Having a disregard for non-optimal solutions because they don't work in some crude edge case, driving other disciplines nuts that would rather approach these edge cases in a social manner. Doing what is the most fun or the most interesting rather than what is best for the business. Watch out for those. I don't get number 3. Is this not everyone? Can you clarify point 3? 3 is evidently the most contentious of the points here. While how someone may act, nicely or otherwise, varies quite significantly, there is some merit in the argument that business interests sometimes stifle innovation. I think Don Norman brings this up in The Design of Everyday Things, more so in the revised edition, where he talks of the intersection, read conflicts of interest, of good design and real-world quandaries, deadlines, taking risks versus playing it safe with a product, stuff like that. Do they matter? You bet they do. Should you rather judge someone who thinks one way instead of the other as not nice? Probably not. I just don't agree with the fact that if you like to do point 3, then it makes the person not nice, because you can still be nice and do point 3. If you do point 3, though, I think that just means you are fed up with the reality requirement of the job and not because you are not nice. Maybe I just don't get the comment. If you are working for a company, you usually don't have the freedom to do the most fun or interesting thing anyway, since you have to develop something in the best interest of the business. The product manager decides at the end how the product should be made. At least that has been my experience. And for some, that reality sucks because it can feel like a chore and exhausting. But some don't mind that reality. You can still be nice and do point 3. Exactament. Yep. Point 3 just means you aren't a good professional, but being nice or not is another topic. Yeah, makes sense. And I am beginning to think that I may not like the professional world. I wanted to get into the field because I enjoyed the creativity in creating things. I loved learning full stack dev at uni, and I was like, I want to do this professionally. But the professional world is so different, just feels like a chore. Maybe it does depend on the company/org. What do you prefer? Doing a funny thing this week you like, getting a new client, and increasing your salary by $1,000 extra. If you choose the first, nice. You could enjoy being an open source contributor, but start finding another job. If you choose the second, you're helping your company, helping that client, and helping yourself as an employee. These options are quite extremist, but professional work is full of small, or not that small decisions like those. And of course, you're expected to help the company. That's why they pay you. To be clear, I am highlighting the fact that there isn't a lot of creative freedom you can express when you are building something in the industry. And what you are set to design and implement will have to be passed off by some people like the product manager. Also, as a developer in the industry, you don't directly communicate with the client. So personally, I don't feel a sense of intimate connection with the product and with the client. This has been my experience so far working in the industry. It feels like a chore, and it's exhausting having to adhere to business rules and higher-ups being told to design and implement something where you have minimal influence in how the product could look like. Maybe I feel this way due to my lack of experience as a developer. Maybe as I get more experience, I can get more influence on how I think the product should look like. I don't know. Being an open source contributor doesn't mean you are going to be doing a funny thing. It just means you have more creative freedom to solve a problem. But they do get peer reviewed as well though, and so you cannot just troll if you want to earn money. Another example is a freelancer. With freelancing, you directly communicate and intimately interact with the client, and you as a developer can show different designs and implementations of a product to satisfy the requirements of the client. You feel like you are more involved and connected with the client and the product, which makes the job as a developer more satisfying and rewarding in my opinion. However, the obvious benefit of having a job in the industry is due to financial reasons, and because it is much more stable and less risky than being a freelancer or an open source contributor. And that's why I am in the industry, because it's the easiest way to earn money. But I'm going to be honest, I don't get a lot of satisfaction out of it due to the reasons explained above. But in an ideal world, if I didn't have any financial burden, I would be a freelancer any day. I do plan to be one though after I have sufficient experience in the industry. I could try now, but a little hesitant with my limited experience. About talking with clients, you will as a dev, heavily depends on role, experience, and business, of course. But you can still do it, not your daily job usually, of course. As freelancer, it's not much different than a company. Maybe you are seeing the funny parts of starting a project, but when your clients tells you they need an integration with Power BI, you better start working on it. Even if you hate it, it's just a very small company. And yeah, in OSS you have to follow rules, of course. My point was just that you can choose between 1,000 projects and 100 issues per project. But rules, there are then everywhere. Even in your funny projects, you better follow the rules. No OSS will tell you to change something in a PR that doesn't make sense and that you should have done from the start, funny or not. Even in your personal projects, not everything is funny. We solve problems, and those problems are the way they are. So as long as you choose the kind of business you like more, it's okay, like developer experience roles if you like them, or gaming industry. But everything has their tedious things anyway. In regards to talking to clients in the industry, what kind of position, experience, and business? When it comes to freelancing, regardless of your position, experience, and the business, you have the opportunity to always be intimately connected with the client. Also, as a freelancer, you have the freedom to decide the kind of projects you want to commit to. You are not forced to take a project like you would have to in the industry. As a freelancer, you make the final decision when it comes to committing to a project. And in regards to OSC as well, you have the flexibility of choosing the project you want to work on. This freedom gives you more satisfaction, makes work more meaningful, and you feel more rewarded when you work on something you care about. Rules are everywhere, from the industry to freelancing and OSC. But there is a lot more freedom when it comes to what kind of project you want to work on, as I mentioned above, which obviously makes you feel motivated and content to complete those projects, regardless of rules requirements, because you care about those projects. So even if the client wants an integration with Power BI, you still would love to do it because you as a freelancer care about that product as you chose to commit to it. And since you can work more closely with the clients, you do have more influence as a dev in regards to your design and implementation decisions, which could help you to integrate some of your decisions to a greater extent. This kind of influence as a dev seems to be much more limited in the industry. If you join the industry, and if you want to enjoy your job in the industry, you need to hope that you're going to like the business, the position in the business, the product/services, and the nature of the job in the industry. Many variables need to go your way to enjoy a job in the industry, and choices in the industry are very limited. For instance, I will give you a real experience. There was a project that was scheduled to start at our company where a senior developer was keen to work on it because it looked and sounded interesting. Guess what happened? It was offshored because it was cheaper. Great for the business, but a bummer for the employee. But people will continue to be in the industry even if those people are not happy with their jobs, because it's the most stable way of getting a consistent flow of income, and because we all need money to survive. I just don't want to spend such a life. And so my hope is that I either find a job in the industry I enjoy or find success from being a freelancer. In regards to talking to clients in the industry, what kind of position, experience, and business? As a senior, usually, in most products that have clients, heavily depends on company culture, however. As a freelancer, you make the final decision when it comes to committing to a project. Not all people can decide or have that many clients, so being picky isn't always an option. Power BI integration as freelance, I'd love to do it as it's my product. Absolutely not. Maybe in some cases or the first months, that's all. I mean, you're lucky if you love everything because you did the app, but that's not common. App doesn't make much sense. You also own the product in most companies. And since you can work more closely with the clients, you do have more influence as a dev in regards to your design and implementation decisions. If you're talking about influence on the client, you better not influence as a dev. That's a big red flag. You influence as a product manager role or similar, not as a dev. If you're talking about influence in technical things, you have it in companies, so I see no difference. So, all of this is like the cliche of, I would love to work on video games industry. Well, maybe for some specific roles in some specific companies, but I can assure you, half of the work is exactly the same as in any other company. Same for freelancing. It's just another kind of company where you must wear different hats, roles. If you end up mixing roles like dev and CEO, you better have good luck. As a senior, usually, in most products that have clients, heavily depends on company culture, however. So you have to be a senior, and you have to hope the company culture is right. Oh, and you also have to hope you want to work on their products, services. The company I work for have many big clients, and you would know these clients if I name them. Yet the senior engineers I know don't have intimate connections with clients. And so, I guess the company culture isn't right. Yeah, could be, or it could be something else. So many variables have to go right when you are working as a dev in the industry. As a freelancer, you cannot always be picky, but definitely more options/choices and freedom than being a dev in the industry, though. Absolutely not. Maybe in some cases, or the first months. That's all. I mean, you're lucky if you love everything because you did the app. I don't agree with this because you not enjoying it doesn't mean someone else won't enjoy it. For instance, I could be forced to use CrechP.net, ASP.NET, and web forms to create something, even though I could use a more modern tech stack. But hey, if I like the product I am building, I don't care what the tech stack is or what kinds of integrations I need to do. And this is me speaking from personal experience. So, all of this is like the cliche of, I would love to work on video games industry. Well, maybe for some specific roles in some specific companies. But I can assure you, Half of the work is exactly the same as in any other company. But as a freelancer, you can decide how big you want to be. You don't want too many clients? You can have that choice as a freelancer. If you start having more and more clients, then you need more people to support you. And by then, you have now started a company. But it doesn't need to get this big if you don't want it to. You would lose all the benefits of being a freelancer, and you would get as bad as the video game industry if you start a company. Being a freelancer gives you that opportunity to not be like your average dev in the industry. There are so many freelancers who are the sole creators, and they are successful without turning themselves into a company. I have been talking to a guy who has been working as a freelancer for 14 years. He is a sole creator. He has been enjoying the different kinds of work, choosing the clients he wants to accept, drop, and money has been great for him, clearly because he has been doing this for 14 years. Yes, there are some similarities between a dev in the industry and a freelancer. But there are a lot more options/choices. Creative freedom, more close connections with clients, and freedom in general as a freelancer compared to a dev in the industry, making your work more interesting, satisfying, and rewarding because you're more involved with the success of the product service as a freelancer. Freelancing is great, but everyone would do it if it was easy. But it is much harder than being a dev in the industry. It's hard to get started. However, if you start right, and if you build a strong foundation, then you will find success. Just like the guy I've talked to found great success. Being a dev in the industry, on the other hand, is the easiest way to coast life with a stable income, but that doesn't mean you will find it meaningful, satisfying, or rewarding because you have so many limited options/choices and freedom to do things. As I said from my previous comment about how a project was offshored, to have a meaningful, satisfying, and a rewarding job in the industry, so many variables need to go your way, and you need to be lucky to have all of that. If you have all that, good for you. You're talking as if freelancing were all funds, and as if being an employee meant working with terrible stuff. Both are terribly wrong. The fact that you know a successful freelancer means nothing. Talk first with the other 100 unsuccessful ones, which had to take any client they could find, unless you're talking of contractors, which are a very different thing. Working in a company of around 50 to 150 employees, I got to work in fantastic projects, talking with clients daily, guiding the development from both a technical and product perspective, if that serves you as a successful employee point of view. But again, both are work. I never said I didn't like it. Work is work, and some things are funnier than others, like everything in this life. If being a freelancer brings you instant happiness just because, good for you. But that's nearly never the case. You should first look for a good company that does something you like, and join a good position where you can do the things you like doing. Because most of what you said looks highly biased. You would lose all the benefits of being a freelancer, and you would get as bad as the video game industry if you start a company. Sure, getting some millions in your account and a full company to lead makes you bad and not being able to enjoy your work. First, you should understand why bigger companies bring more hatred toward them. Because it isn't a just because they are a big company thing. Making your work more interesting, satisfying, and rewarding because you are more involved with the success of the product service as a freelancer. Exactly what you can do in many consultant-like companies, and non-consultant-like too, of course, but it depends more on the kind. Any startup is literally a freelancer with some friends, if you want to see it that way. So well, whatever. Most I can read here are just assumptions about companies bad and freelancers funny. Don't know if it's that you simply like freelancers for personal reasons, but they are no more than assumptions at the end of the day. That looks like are biasing you. I'd recommend you to try working in a good company first, maybe a startup if that's what you like, and then or being freelancer. I guess there's nice socially, and there's also nice in the sense of thinking of others and how your behavior and work impacts them indirectly. I would add to SRSN Davis's explanation that it is very easy for reasonable people to disagree on what is best for the business. An engineer may know that if they don't spend a day cleaning something up that already works, then instead they'll have to spend that day at an unpredictable point in the future when the working but messy solution gets in the way of something that should have been easy. If the product manager can't see a difference in the product, then they might not appreciate that the work is still important, and the ticket for that work might never get into a sprint. Likewise, engineers can misjudge the importance of such work. We don't know for certain what shape the product will take going forward, and a day spent improving code that you never visit again is a day wasted from a lean point of view. Personally, I think a sustainable software production process ought to prioritize such technical chores, if only to keep the engineers feeling confident and provide teachable moments. It is what it is, though, that many interesting software engineering roles are about capturing a market first. Sustainable engineering principles be damned. Having a disregard for business people because they are perceived to be less technically savvy. That comes from the load of business people who know neither about business or tech and are only in their position because they talk more than anybody could remember. Sure, most of them aren't like that, but you just keep the few bad examples as an overall depiction of the trade. I remember a few project managing, or what it was called, teachers who were totally out of touch of reality to an extent it was hilarious. These are good pointers. Understanding that we're all needed and adapting your communication to your audience and aligning teams working towards the same goal makes you a unicorn. But be careful. If you're an engineer, you easily end up in mentoring, leading teams, sales support, etc. I've seen people getting burnt out in these situations. On top of that, you have the Peter effect, and while making good money, you're primarily working on things you're not really good at. I actually had a conversation with a couple coworkers about point one today. One of them is an older guy and is a janitor. He's not super tech savvy at all, but goddamn the guy can clean. His strength isn't in technology, but that's fine because my strength isn't in cleaning. I'll be happy to help him with any issues any day of the week because he keeps those bathrooms spotless. Talk shit about their tech stack and you will see a totally different side. Lol, that's a good one. But on a serious note, this feels somewhat ungenerous, answering one cliché with another. I think it's more the people who are new who have this supremacist attitude towards their stack. Most people who've actually used multiple technologies would know that there is a right tool for every job. Screw tech stacks. Just say tabs are better than spaces, or iOS is better than Android, and see them rip each other apart. Wait till you see the other side. We are all here to suffer. I love majority of BS math, physics, CS people. They don't stress over shits like our program is much difficult compared to others. I think you got lucky. My CS classes have been super competitive, and the other students have been smart, but not understanding or nice. I'm looking for a CS program at a less competitive school where collaboration is valued. UDEF didn't use Overstack before, lol. Overstack, you mean Stack Overflow? Yeah, it's kind of scary posting questions there. I feel like if my question don't good enough, they're willing to give me downvote, but I'm just starting out looking everywhere for help. How do I suppose to have good questions? While I do get why they want to have better questions in order to avoid lazy people looking for lazy solutions and not have forums be flooded with uninformative questions, I still find it annoying how elitist they are about it. Early on in my uni degree, when I started using it, I would spend like an hour trying to format a question and double-checking everything I wrote and making sure it's all good, only for it to get locked because it's not good enough or some shit, lol. I've been in a forum without strict mods. Seriously, it was terrible. It was impossible to find answers, and it was flooded with terrible newbie questions, which add nothing to it. Stack Overflow isn't where a student asks questions. Because student questions are probably a known basic domain, aka something easily found Googling, or asking their teacher, I guess. For me, it is for professionals. Ask questions that nobody near you can answer and that you couldn't find neither in docs or searching. A student rarely know how to do any of those, with clear exceptions, of course. I once had this guy downvote my question and re-edit everything because I used conjugations in my post. I replied and I was like, seriously? And he's like, how do you think your employer would feel if you use I'm instead of I am? I said he'd compliment my efficiency if he even cared. The dude then closed my question and I have negative karma now. The fact that the open source community exists is insanely cool to me. Almost every proprietary application has an open source version, and like 80% of the time, it's better. Of course, there are different open source licenses, but in most cases, the codebase belongs to you as much as it belongs to me and everyone else. On the flip side, there are definitely some gatekeepers. They're rare, but you'll run into them at some point. Some Linux people will act like, oh, Linux is not for you, blah, blah. But 95% of Linux users want everyone to use it, and there are a few distros that are designed to be super user-friendly now. People will help you out on their own time for nothing in return. So I too would like to express my gratitude to all the who take time out of their day to help beginners. I wouldn't be where I am today without such generous people. That is definitely not the case. I've known not-so-nice people in CS and nice people in other domains, ranging as widely as mathematics, physics, history, psychology, cognitive science, and religious studies and theology. I think it's more a case of a sampling bias. You are by your own words, but also judging by the relative brevity of your initial post, introverted, implying that you likely don't interact too much with people outside your clique. Going by your description, you are smart, nice, and understanding. Ergo, your clique is mostly either smart people like yourself who see you as an equal, as well as possibly others who want to take in some of the reflected luminescence. Obviously, they regard you with respect, so even if, in some contexts and settings you've never seen, they have another side, they're nothing but nice to you. TLDR, I think it's less a matter of people in CS, but more in people who you like to interact with and who like to interact with you. Well, one could argue that it is easier to find such people as OP mentioned in CS. I think most STEM people are generally nice because they don't have the time or energy to be mean. That's just anecdotal, though. I think that STEM majors also attract more introverted types and smart-driven types, both of which don't benefit from being mean to others or each other. Learning is when we are ready to share. This is the open secret. When we try to block others from gaining knowledge, we lock our own knowledge and understanding. Trauma bonding is real. Way different experience than me. I found tech people to be pretty passive-aggressive and slightly insufferable. Go ask a question on Stack Overflow. Come back in a week and let me know how you're doing. Afau, is this a sarcasm post? The most toxic, disrespectful, and craziest, the most mentally ill people I have ever met are the people have CS degree. However, the gentlest and the most civilized people I have met are also people of CS background too. They are at the too extreme end of the spectrum. Maybe I saw that because I work in the programming field, but I have met so many people in various fields too. Honestly, it's lower testosterone levels. I'd offer one thought. A lot of computing culture developed on the West Coast at a time and place where there was a culture of kindness and curiosity, which infused computing. John Macroft's What the Dormouse Said draws a line from the 60s counterculture to the personal computer industry. That being said, there are downsides to the niceness. A lot of Silicon Valley and modern computing can be cutthroat, so it's not a rule. I feel like this has changed the past 10 years. Yeah, this is what I also noticed too. The students are mostly nice and tend to be calm, introverted. Some people are also too introverted that sometimes won't even appear in chat group, lol. This is what I really hate about CS. Maybe from my assumption, CS major people tend to rarely meet people less often. They tend to work by themselves. That's why mostly the people are less drama, introverted, and more understanding, in a technical way. Compared to socials major like public relations, law school, those people are really loud, tend to be involved into some drama. Because they are mostly geeks who are craving for social attention, and especially if it's career-related. People from this major aren't drama, and they don't have time and energy to involve in dramas. This major requires less people skills. Capacity for abstract thought extends into understanding psychology and the human condition, something like that. One of the reasons why I like programming. I'm not sure, but now that I found myself in school for CS, I realized that it's perfect for me. Remote work options because of my introverted nature and mental health problems, and tons of puzzles in the form of solutions to problems that I need to read code for. I get excited talking to people in our field because I look up to them for the time they've put in and the wisdom they've accrued. Most are happy and lighthearted, which just further reassures that I'm on the right career path. We are all similarly traumatized. I like to think I can be very nice and helpful, though sometimes I can get stressed out, but I've had a lot of people be very rude. I think it depends on how people handle the imposter syndrome. They're very good at logic and are typically more responsive and less reactive because they understand how things work. Unite people are usually decent. I've been a professional software developer for over 35 years, and almost all the coworkers I've had over all this time have been great people. We help each other out and are very supportive. I can't imagine how awful it would be to work for a place that wasn't like this. My experience was similar, just ages ago. We were a bit stressed in our case since we also needed to attend math and physics courses for 2 years. Most bonded well and helped out as much as we could. So many of us survived the first 2 years of a 4-year degree since we rapidly shared our advice or sometimes assignments, homework with others so they didn't fail. We thought that in a sense what we learned in math, foundations, and physics, just partially, rather hardly related to electronics, hardware, materials, was not worth failing at, and still, 3 out of 60 didn't make it since the exams were tough. One thing that I didn't expect was that we rapidly formed groups of up to 6. I'd say that cracked the hardest problems together, often in the evenings up to until 10 p.m. Note, there's always outliers, like people who really want to do this on their own, or the bright minds that still don't have enough input, crave to process even more, and read books on top of all the rest we already have to do. Many were introverts and nerds, so especially in the last 2 years, topics we expected and kind of knew like databases, programming basics, geometric algorithms, data structures, parallel computation, AI, and many other topics were almost peanuts for us, easy going. Most things we knew to some degree already anyway, often programming in assembly, C++, or other relatively hard languages. My teacher makes me feel dumb if I ask any questions. They haven't yet worked in industry. Lol. Because they were fucked when they were mathematicians. TBH in Facebook groups. I feel it's different. They act like they know everything. People in the sciences are logical. It's logical to be nice to people. I need to go where y'all are, because this has not been my experience at all. Lol, is this sarcastic? I genuinely can't tell. If not, I'm happy for you, OP, that you've had a good experience. It's because we have so many problems that our patience has skyrocketed. There's still a shitload of misogyny in tech. CS is significantly worse compared to other engineering and math. A common sentiment I experienced in college was that anybody who couldn't get an A in data structures and algorithms was stupid, as LEET coding is 1-1 with IQ. In any other discipline, students would just go, it's a hard class. It's only in CS that I find students discount how hard the subject is. These qualities are needed for debugging, dominated by anxious people, pleasures that avoid confrontation. ENTPs. CS is probably one of the most abstract, hardest, wide, and deep things someone can do. And everyone will have some shared pain and suffering, and others will have their own lane of hell that they pushed through. When I see a new CS student, and even those that have been in the game for 10 plus years trying to make it to that next level, I have that experience of how hard it was for me to do the same. The light nights, weekends, mornings, holidays working on work or my own learning projects, just to improve my own capabilities or finish a tight deadline created by myself. The road is rough, but those that take it will be greatly rewarded if they really put in the work. Those that do the bare minimum get the bare minimum, and to a professional, it is very easy to spot those that did the hard work and those that did not. For those that don't, guiding them back through on the proper path and showing them the fruits of their labor in doing the hard work and the amazing outcome is like a breath of fresh air. For those that already did the hard work, seeing what they can do with the right team, challenges and technology, breeds new technology, or greatly enhances existing technology beyond its limits. So we are nice to each other because it is hard work, and anyone going through it will really end up going through it. Maybe we've been humbled by the sufferings of Comp Sci, and now we are just nice. Don't have the energy to be mean to you, and it would be suboptimal as well. I'm a developer, and my entire team, including me, are all assholes. This code sucks. WTF is this? I mean this in a good way, though. We're constantly challenging each other to be better. We're rarely nice. Just state that Rust will never replace C, and you'll change your tune on the niceness of CS people. Lol, IDK if this is generally true, but the field does require a degree of patience and understanding. Modern tech stacks are complicated. It's impossible to know everything. Lol, you haven't joined a startup. We're all introverts and are simply thrilled that someone is talking to us about something we find interesting. Computers are assholes, and learning to work with them is humbling and painful.